Βρισκόμαστε στο κέντρο.
We are standing at the center of the Epidaurus Asclepion, the sanctuary of Asclepius in Epidaurus, a location that became sacred approximately 4,000 years ago. From the start, the purpose of the cult that began here was to cleanse people and to provide treatment by the god in a location a little higher on the hill of the Apollo Maleatus sanctuary. Apollo was Asclepius's father and stayed in this sanctuary with him until the end. Since that time, man has asked this god for treatment in this area because the water in it is of very good quality and the entire site is conducive to health and relaxation. Starting in the 6th century BC, the cult is transferred here and becomes established continuously, developing from that time to the 4th century, the late classical years. It became the main sanctuary of this cult in antiquity, boasting about 200 Asclepia in the then-known world, from Asia Minor to Rome. They say the cult was born here, in this sanctuary, Epidaurus, which was mainly known as the birthplace of Asclepius. It is said that his mother, Coronis, left him out on this hill. She had become pregnant by Apollo, and as their union was not legal, she put the child out there to die or for someone else to pick up. The child was found by a goat and raised by a shepherd, so the god of health and medicine remained here. It must be said that worship in this sanctuary was the main element of healing. Healing in the beginning was religious, magical. There was no science involved. One would come here, pray to the god, and the god would give him his health. This was the sanctuary's history in broad lines.
Την υγεία του. Αυτό είναι το χαρακτηριστικό αυτής της ιστορίας του ιερού. Σιγά σιγά όμως...
Gradually, however, thanks to observing the sick people's cases and the effectiveness of this or that treatment given them, they were eventually led to actual scientific medicine, and this can be seen from at least the 2nd century BC, when successive families of doctors, scientist doctors, healed the sick here.
Οι οποίοι και θεράπευαν τους ανθρώπους.
This was more or less the character of the sanctuary, which was considered by the people of antiquity and today's students alike as the cradle of ancient and modern medicine. Let's walk towards the monuments so we can say a few things. Another significant building, pivotal in the sanctuary, I would say, was the restaurant, the ritual restaurant. They didn't just eat for pleasure there, they participated in ritual meals to which they invited the god to attend and were supposed to partake of the same sacrificial animal, a meal therefore that conferred power to both the god and men. This building was finished around 300 BC and is more recent than the others, but no less important. One can see its size was very large, with big rooms for the general public and smaller rooms for more important persons. You know that ancient Greeks ate propped up on beds, which is why there were also beds in these small rooms, and of course a large court in which these rituals were held. One can see that it is possible to stand up fully in a specific place, as it is important and preserves many of its parts. In the 4th century, the sanctuary was fully developed and had around 70 buildings, while it was spread over an area of 40 hectares. Here we are at the center, in the 3 main sanctuary buildings for worship and healing. These are the temple of Asclepius, the center of his presence on earth, and the Tholos, a building shrouded in mystery, which was thought to be Asclepius's subterranean dwelling, because Asclepius healed from inside the earth using earth's life-giving powers, which were water and the rebirth of plants and animals. The 3rd building is the Avaton, a long colonnade. One can only see its top part here, but it continues further down. A large building, which we could call a modern hospital today. It was Asclepius's center of healing, namely a place where patients remained for a while, preparing to meet the god. As we've said, during this time, healing was based mainly on the patient's self-suggestion. Afterwards, patients went to the lower part, where the colonnade was 2-storied, and lay on the floor to sleep, on the earth, waiting to see the healer god in their sleep, or a sacred animal of the god that would give them the treatment. We are in the basement ground floor of this healing center, where patients slept on the floor. You can see that there is no hard floor here. Patients had to touch the earth itself, because sleep is a message of death. The story of rebirth is well known. Just as a plant dies and its seed falls on the earth, and a new plant sprouts from it, so did the ancient inhabitants believe that the life of man also works. This is why healing here worked through a dream, which the patient saw sleeping on the earth. In essence, by going into the earth, he saw Asclepius, or his sacred animal, and received his healing from there. Here we have 2 characteristic miracles from those that were represented on the steles, where we can understand this double meaning of healing. You can see that the patient is asleep, and while he is asleep, the god's serpent comes and licks his shoulder, healing him. The patient sees the god in his sleep. The god touched the patient's hand and heals it. So we have many such stories, some of which are funny, and I will tell you a characteristic one. There's this lady who wants to get pregnant. So she comes to the sanctuary, goes to sleep, sees Asclepius, and he asks her what she wants. She says, "I want to get pregnant." Okay, done. She leaves here, gets pregnant, but 9 months go by. A year goes by, 2 years, 3 years. She couldn't give birth. The child remained in her belly. She returns to the sanctuary, goes to sleep, and sees the god, who asks her again, "What do you want?" "I want to give birth." "Didn't I say this?" "No, you didn't say this. You said you wanted to get pregnant. You didn't say you wanted to give birth. Go, and you will give birth. And she gave birth. What does this mean? It means that the priests already had acquired a lot of experience in medicine. They wanted the patient to tell them their exact history, and the stels played their part in the healing process. This here is exactly the area where they prepared the upper colonnade, in which was this well, a well that was in operation since the beginnings of the sanctuary, from the 6th century BC, and its water was used for the purification of patients before they met with the god. This, however, was not all that went on while they waited. You can see here the pedestals of big stone stels on which were written the miracles that Asclepius was supposed to have performed, that the patients read and convinced themselves that something similar would happen to them too. Six of these stels have been preserved and are currently in the museum. On them, we read stories that show this building's function.
Όλα τα μεγάλα ιερά
All big sanctuaries had a theatre and a stadium, and most of those that had them attracted large crowds. Epidaurus too has its stadium and a theatre. Besides, exercising the body was one of the ways that helped people get healthy again.
Ήταν ένας από τους τρόπους με τους οποίους ερχόταν ξανά η υγεία στους ανθρώπους.
This stadium is mentioned first by Pindar, and then, from the 3rd century onwards, it acquired the stone seats we can see today.
Συνέχεια, από τον 3ο αιώνα και μετά, παίρνει αυτά τα λίθινα εδόλια τα οποία βλέπουμε σήμερα. Σώζεται σε καλή κατάσταση.
It is well preserved, and for the moment, its left side and the pitch have been restored.
Και ο στίβος.